Hello, this is Tamara Sweeney from lovedominates.com, and I have another guest here from Atlanta, Georgia. Fulton County, actually, her court case happened in Fulton County, but her name is Mara. And Mara, I just want to ask if I have your permission to record this video first before we even get started.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. Okay, great. So why don't you tell us what your story is as a mother in Fulton County, Georgia?
Let's see, I was a stay-at-home mother. I had 6 kids.
God
When
bless you. I love
everything
it.
went down, my oldest daughter was in college. She was 21. I had a sophomore and a junior in high school. I had 1 son in middle school and 2 in elementary. Um, Basically, I mean, my ex's business wasn't doing too well. '08 definitely hit him hard, but for some reason that was all my fault. The whole economic decline. And he was diagnosed by a therapist I was seeing as being a malignant narcissist. And I began to understand pretty quickly what was going on. And he also drank heavily and was very abusive to me. And I finally got up courage and I confronted him um, about his abusive treatment of me and his drinking problem, which was affecting everybody because it basically put the workload of taking care of the home and family
How
totally
long were
on
you
me.
married?
I was married 23 years.
Okay.
So I basically wanted him to just sort of straighten up and, take some responsibility for his actions. And, you know, instead, he started telling the kids that mom was crazy. He cut me off from the bank account if I had to go to the store, which of course I had to do because he didn't grocery shop or cook food. I had to ask one of my teenage children to ask him for the credit card to purchase groceries or school supplies or whatever was needed. And he just became very controlling of me. When I tried to verbally communicate with him about the situation, he wouldn't respond to me. He basically stopped talking to me and would just look at me and walk away if I tried to have a rational conversation.
Did he sense that you were leaving, or
Well, I
it was
wasn't
the
leaving.
alcoholism?
It was never my intention to leave. I just wanted him to just sort of grow up. I married him. He was 21 when I married him. At this point, he was 45. And I really just wanted him to grow up and be responsible. Other than, he would go out and make money and we had a good home and all that. But well, I didn't really understand this diagnosis I was given anyhow, that he was, a narcissist. I didn't fully understand the scope of that. But basically, he must have gotten with some kind of a group of people or some kind of knowledge of how to take over the family and all that, because he threatened me with, I'm going to take the house, I'm going to take the kids, I'm going to leave you in the gutter. And I never heard another word coming out of his mouth after he said those words to me. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. That will never happen. And sure enough, he made it happen. First of all, he was able to get a court order to have me institutionalized. He had sheriffs come to the house and take me to the state mental hospital for observation. And
What was the cause? There's no cause.
he made up some story that I was dangerous and mentally unstable, and he told them I had a history of mental illness, which was all fabricated by him. And they released me there, after less than 24 hours of observation, because they said there's nothing wrong with you. And actually, a therapist who talked to me there, she was a social worker, she goes, "This is typical. We see this happening all the time. Next thing you know, you're going to lose your kids." And I thought, then what are you talking about? I really thought,
Here comes
that
the
was
games.
extreme. But she knew exactly what was going on. She knew why he had me put there. And a week later, he had a protective order against me, a restraining order. I couldn't go back into my house, and I haven't been back in my house since, and that was 4.5 years ago. Um, but it's just been a nightmare. I just never had money for a lawyer because I was a stay-at-home mom and I was financially cut out. I I never had any due process, and he just kept filing motions against me and filing fake police reports saying I, threatened him, his his household with going through the car and leaving guns on car seats. The amount of fabricated stories. I intentionally injured my children on a visit that I had with them. The list goes on, and I've read so many other people's stories at this point, the exact same
Well, what
thing
this
with the
is
filing of false motions and me not even getting a chance to defend myself. It's just incredible.
it is
So,
because now you're on the back end and you're being bombarded. That's what they do. They create chaos. They're gaslighting you, and then they create chaos so that you can't keep your head above water. You can't get a job. You can't function. I mean, they just take your kids from you and take everything that you've had and destroy it, literally.
yeah,
So
yeah.
how did you so this has been going on for 4.5 years, you said?
4.5 years. Yep. I haven't had contact with my oldest three kids in 4.5 years. My younger kids, I would have a visit once every other week for a few hours. Didn't have one single overnight in the 4.5 year period. But he ended that as soon as I signed the divorce. He just refused any visit whatsoever. Um, and that was 3 years ago. I have not seen my younger kids. Um,
And how far away do you live from them?
I live just an hour away from them. And the reason I moved that far is we were in an affluent part of Atlanta, and I wanted to be able to provide my children with a house. I found a rental house in a small town that had a nice school district, had a university close by, so they had good teachers at the public school. And was working two jobs, and I was prepared to take my kids in, but there was nothing I could do to convince the judge because the lawyer that he had just would bombard me with lies that he would tell, and I would have no way to defend myself
So
without
what
having a
can you
lawyer.
pinpoint certain I guess time periods and laws that the judges or the lawyers piled against you?
They kept using the story of mentally ill, being mentally ill, which they never had any proof of. And actually, after he had me institutionalized, I voluntarily um, saw a psychiatrist because I became convinced I was mentally ill because he'd been telling me that for a while. And I wanted to find out and I have a definitive report from a psychiatrist saying that I have no mental illness. I'm suffering from narcissistic abuse, and was going through the process of recovery, so he was helping me with that. And I've had those records for every time I've gone to court to present to the judge that say I have no mental illness. There's no reason I shouldn't be with my children.
Did they allow you
Or
to hand in any evidence?
I, um, as far as I know, the judge didn't even look at it. Every time I went into court, too, the judge would threaten me and sort of be. It seemed to me like she was definitely in having a friendship with his lawyer, um, and they were just sort of enjoying being cruel to me. Every time I went to court, that scenario played out. So
That's exactly right. What I've learned is from a narcissist is everyone that you come in contact with, they treat you the same demeaning way that your ex would treat you. So the not only are the lawyers talking down to you, but the judge is talking down to you, which is basically unethical, for the judge. But they do that all over. It's very common.
yeah,
So have
so
you tried, I know you've probably reached out. I've seen you speak out on other videos. Have your kids tried to get in touch with you, or do you think they're too afraid?
Yes, I know for a fact from one of my children, who did try to reach out to me but has not since, that they are being threatened to not contact me. Um,
What about your
yeah.
21-year-old? This drives me nuts, but people say, oh, you know, they aged out. They have their own minds now, which they don't. Their minds don't really develop until 25. Um, and I don't know if the 21-year-old has broken loose, or that one's even brainwashed the worst.
I don't know who's better or worse, but I have 4 kids now that are 18 and older, actually, and the one of them was the one that reached out to me briefly, um, and I haven't heard from them since this past year. I spent a few hours talking to them, with them, having time with them, and nothing since. So, I mean, obviously, they're all terrified. The one that took a bold stride and came out and found me and spent time with me, was very happy to see me, but obviously affected. And we hadn't seen each other in a few years, so it was it was heart wrenching.
I
Um,
understand.
so yeah,
Well, being
but
out of
it's
Fulton
torture,
County,
it's abuse. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's okay. The internet connection kind of went bad, but um,
Okay.
being out of Fulton County, I mean, I have heard a lot of stories out of Georgia in different counties. Um, but have you connected any dots or any trails of corruption, or what's going on? Do you have a lot of families out there that that are going through the same thing?
Um, I mean, I know for a fact that my ex was friends with the chief of police department, that he used those police in Sandy Springs, Georgia, to terrorize me, and to help write false motions, through the Knights of Columbus organization, which he was a member of. Um, there's definitely a tie there. I know that the lawyer that my ex hired is notorious in Atlanta for lying in court and bullying, and also connected with the judges.
There you go.
So I've heard that many times over. I mean, I approached lawyers to help me pro bono because I had no money in my situation. And they asked, once they saw the name of his lawyer, they said, no, we're not dealing with that lawyer. She's nasty. She wins. She's very unethical. Um, and none of them wanted to jeopardize their own reputation going up against her.
Well, I'm glad you didn't
So,
get a lawyer, only because you just would have lost money. I mean, all these cases are premeditated. They are
yeah.
premeditated before you even go in. And his goal was to put you in submission. And it's just ungodly that they do this, because I say this all the time. They're both your children, half sperm, half egg. They're 50% of each of you guys. And uh, normal people that aren't narcissistic or living in a delusional world are able to co-parent. You know, some at a mild, some at a moderate, some at severe. But I mean, you should be able to co-parent and have 50% rights of your children. I mean, absolutely, there's nothing wrong with you. You were the stay-home mom, and there was no. Let me ask you this: was there any reports of you before um, the divorce or the papers were served? Did he have any PFAs on you before, or any um, mental illness records before this all happened?
no, this is all stuff that he made up. Yeah, I mean, I was such an upright person. I mean, I didn't even have a speeding ticket. Um, I mean, I don't have a criminal record. I don't use drugs. I don't abuse alcohol. I'm very fitness conscious. I'm very outdoorsy and health conscious. I was a volunteer in the community. I volunteered at the Carlos Art Museum as a tour guide while my children were at school for inner city children to teach them about art. Um, it's just crazy what he's gotten away with, given the type of person I am, and how wonderful. I mean, at that point, I had a daughter in college. My kids are high achievers in school. They're fun. They've got friendships. They're well-rounded children, and I get treated like I'm a horrible parent in court. It's just, I mean, it's shocking. It goes through my head every day. I've got PTSD from it, which, the trauma of what I went through in court. Um,
Do you have a support system?
um, just through different groups on the internet when I
But I
need
mean,
it.
did you lose your family and friends because of this? And
Yeah, I would say for the most part, people pull away because they feel helpless. They feel like there's nothing I can do, and I'm definitely not the same person. You know, I'm not so carefree. I live very purposefully. I'm very focused now. I My friends were people that had children that were friends with my children, and I find it very difficult to spend time with them and watch their children growing and going through the motions while I don't even know what my kids are doing. Um, it's difficult. So I've had to create my own new life. Plus, I've had to figure out how to support myself financially, which has been quite challenging because I sacrificed that for so long. So, yeah.
well, you had the most important job in the world, and that was being a mom. And just to give you confirmation, what they did was not even human. And one day, God's going to get these narcissists back because they're going to be at Judgment Day. So it's horrible. I understand. I haven't seen my oldest. I have 4 kids. I wanted 8. I would have kept having more, but I understand living in that chaos. But it took me to understand what was actually going on in the house. I had to be out of that house to be able to see, because I trusted and believed everything that my husband at the time had said. So, and it's hard having the alcoholism on top of it, because that is a major issue. And to me, anyone that is an alcoholic or a gambler or any kind of addiction has some kind of childhood trauma that they can't get over, or something. And they're going to either alcohol, drugs, gambling, some kind of addiction. So it's almost like they have a resentment against you for being who you are. You were the stable one, obviously, in the home. You had that loving relationship with your children. And it's like they build a resentment up and just want to destroy you because, you know, whether you weren't actually leaving him, but he was angry because I guess you told him he had a problem.
Yeah, he never wanted to be seen as bad or to look bad. So I mean, I had an incident a few years prior to the us not living together anymore that he was so drunk that I asked him to pull over, and I had to try and get the keys out of his hands to the car because he was so drunk. And as I was reaching for the keys, he shoved me out of the car and took off. And this was at the middle of the night after being at a friend's house party. He left me on the side of the highway, and he somehow made it home and just passed out in bed. And I was at the side of the highway till the sun rose the next morning and saw a taxi cab pass. I was there for over 3 hours on the side of the highway.
So
And
when did you start realizing all these issues?
Right from the beginning, shortly after we were married, just how excessively he would drink and got very verbally abusive of me, and then would totally deny it the day after and act like nothing happened. I would feel, emotionally broken from what he had said to me. And it
Did he
was
do
just,
this in front of the children?
oh yeah, often. Yeah. And I think they also learned to act like it was nothing, or think that that's okay. And I'm sure they're witnessing it now too. He just has incredible control over them. He's somebody who's very charismatic. He works in sales. He owns a sales-based business, and he knows how to cover himself. He also knows how to buy himself out of situations by paying people off. And I know he's paying the kids off for complying with what he wants from them, which is to not contact me, to not contact his grandparents, my parents, who, love them very much and spent a lot of time. We took vacations together all the time. So it's difficult for all three of us, me and my parents. But yeah.
Well, I'm glad you had that support, at least from your parents. But
yeah.
Is there anything that you want to say to your children before we end this video? Because I'm in hopes maybe we can get this out, that maybe they'll see it.
I mean, I love them, and I know it's their father that created the situation. It's affected everyone. I know especially them. It breaks my heart every day that they're young and, they were just developing, and he just came through and tore things up like a monster and, threw me to the sidelines and probably is blaming me for everything. And there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, every day I try and find avenues to help, to get my kids, to get in contact with them, to get them out of the situation that they're in. And there's just nobody out there that can actually do anything. No lawyer, no group, no help group, no other parents. I mean, it's just an abyss of just, people just looking away. It's incredible how I feel so many people just look away. People that could.
No, I know people. Like you said, they don't know how to handle it because they think of it as so unreal, which it is. I feel like I'm the only case here, but I have found out there are millions like me that happened in my hometown. But I am here to tell you that Love Dominates. I am creating a support group, like a forum, a private support group. And I have a woman right now, she's designing templates for letters that we can send out to our adult children. And I want a team of, whether it's mothers or fathers, we can send them from out of state, from different parents, because I call them flying monkeys. There's so many flying monkeys around these children that are supporting the narcissist. So we need more people. This is my own personal opinion, of course. We need more people supporting you as the mom or the dad, saying that these behaviors are not right. So if we could get these, I want them to be loving letters, but at the same time educational, so that maybe it'll drop a seed in our children's heads, that to go out and Google, or to go out and educate themselves, privately, because they can't do it in front of their parent at home. So I'm trying to reach out in different ways that way. So I would love you to be on our team and joining us for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because all right, well, I totally thank you for doing this interview. It was last minute, and I know you have a gym class. But stay in touch, and we will definitely see if we can do anything, because your 6 kids need you, and I know they love you deep down.
Thank you, Tamara.
Oh, no problem. All right, I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much, Mara.
Okay. Hey.
All right, bye-bye. Go to lovedominates.com, and thank you very much.